Good morning and welcome to another edition of 6 Feet Apart. We're starting a new series in the book of Psalms today, and I'm going to start with chapter 1. This is the introduction to the whole book. Chapter 1 says this: "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinner, nor sits in the seat of a scoffer, but his delight is in the law of the Lord. On his law he meditates day and night. He's like a tree that's planted by streams of water that yield its fruit in its season, and its leaf it does not wither. In all of his ways he prospers." I think this is what my heart longs for. I long to be someone of substance, a person that finds success in both the spiritual, emotional, physical realms of life. To truly be the blessed one, or as the original audience would have heard it, this is someone who is truly happy. Happy at the deepest core of your life, regardless of whether you're in the middle of a bounty or you're lacking. There is a joy that marks every moment of your day, a satisfaction that carries you through your contentment in this life. This is what I want, and I hope it's what you want as well. In the past, I've looked at this text wanting so badly to be a part of the blessed people, but realizing that when I view it like a punch list to avoid sinners, to avoid scoffers, to avoid walking in certain ways, it all ends up being about me and an avoidance. And I know that's not the way of Jesus. He came and lived among us. So what does this actually look like? I think it's less about avoidance and more about what you're gravitating towards. Because the goal is not to avoid being chaff, as the passage says, but it's to become like a tree that's planted near streams of water, so that our leaves, they will not wither, so that in every season will bring forth its fruit, that there'll be a sense of prospering when we are intended to by God's hand. And so it's really more about the source and less about our associations. I mean, think about this idea. Jesus didn't run from sitting, walking, or standing as a human did. Jesus, he came and walked among us. Jesus, he came and sat in our seats. He stood among us, yet he did in a different way. Think about the way that Jesus walked. He didn't walk in the counsel of the wicked. Now, the counsel, it would have been the teachings of the religious leaders at the time. I've referred to it in the past, and others, scholars have done as well, of the yoke. That's how you live out your faithfulness to Yahweh on earth. Jesus came and he said, no, those yokes, they're wearisome, they're burdensome, but my yoke is easy. I'm walking in accordance not with the teachings of others, but with the teachings of the Father. Not only did he walk in a different way, he also stood among in a different way. I see that Jesus, he stood among humanity, yet his posture towards humanity was different than the posture of other people. Yes, he stood among us, but he didn't stand among the prostitutes to take from them. He stood among them to give them dignity. He spent time with the tax collector and the sinners, the weak and the sick, so as to give to, not take from. You see, Jesus, he walked among, he stood among, but he did in such a different way. Not only that, Jesus stepped down from the bench of judgment to come as the forerunner of grace, announcing his kingdom, the good news that favor had visited earth from heaven through his very incarnation. Instead of being a scoffer who would judge others, Jesus becomes the scoffed one. In my mind, I have a vision of Jesus taking the scoffings of the religious elite as he's being condemned and crucified, taking the scoffing that you and I deserved. So you see, Jesus, it wasn't so much about avoiding walking among, standing among, sitting among. It was more to do with his association with the Father. I love that Jesus, throughout his story, has these illustrations, times where he runs and just tucks away with the Father. That the description of his general waft and movement of his life was that he lived to do the will of the Father. He is and will forever be the tree planted by streams of water, who is planted by those waters and yields its fruit in its season. His leaves, they do not wither. In all that he does prospers. Think about it. Jesus crucified on a tree takes that tree, the hideous tool that humanity threw at Jesus, and even with the most hideous mark that the earth could conjure, he ends up prospering in the work of redemption. That even though his body fell to the grave and was buried in the earth, his leaves did not wither any more than his body started to rot. He becomes the figurative tree of life, the one planted in the very life-giving Trinity, who then becomes the vine and we the branches. So as I reflect on this, I see that Jesus has become the man, the tree planted for me. And in him, I find the connection to the eternal life and fullness of joy and the abundant blessing that I long for in my heart. It's not found through doing certain things or isolating away from or getting away from things, but rather in connecting myself to who he truly is, to infusing my life with his life and meditating on his words as the very source of life. And as I align myself with the vine, I am able to live out of the abundance that Jesus brings and find that joyful, satisfied, rich life that I long for. I hope that's encouraging to you today. If you're seeking for those things, seek no further than Jesus, the very source of all life. Have a great day.